Hello, 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 world. This is Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And I know you've heard me mention some of my favorite leaders, that being Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Dr. Claude Anderson, and of course, Malcolm X is no longer with us. However, Malcolm X's birthday was a couple of days ago, May 19th. He was born May 19th, 1925, which he would be 100 years of age. And that deserves celebrating. So, what I've done, I found this speech on YouTube by a podcaster, and I'm going to share it with you. And I'd like to thank the person, I believe the YouTube channel is called Man of God. And I'd like to thank Man of God for sharing this powerful video. And I'm going to share it with you. So be sure and listen because let the truth be told. So here we go. This is a speech, and I'm just going to share it. I'm not going to interrupt it. And once he's finished, I will make a few comments and I will close out the video. So let's celebrate the 100th birthday of one of our greatest leaders, Malcolm X. Here we go with this speech, and it is powerful. Take heed.
Brothers and sisters, we've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, lied to, sold a dream dipped in red, white, and blue, and called it freedom. But I'm not here to sing lullabies to the blind. I'm here to shake the sleepers and rip the veil off the illusion. This country, the so-called land of the free, has never been free for you and me. While they chant about liberty, they lock the doors of justice. While they preach peace, they drop bombs. While they parade around the world as saviors, they can't clean the blood off their own streets. Let's speak plain. America is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It smiles in your face while its system presses a knee on your neck. It hands you a ballot in one hand and a bullet in the other. It tells you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps after stealing your boots, your land, your labor, and your name. You see, the trick was never in the chains, it was in the mind. They want you to believe you're free because you can choose between two masters. But freedom doesn't come from choosing your master. Freedom comes when you refuse to be a slave. America masks oppression with false freedom. From the moment we are born, we are fed a narrative, a scripted lullaby of liberty. We are told that this nation is the beacon of hope, the guardian of justice, the home of the free. They fly the flag high and sing songs of glory, all while denying millions the very rights they claim to protect. But look deeper, and you'll see the contradiction written in blood and bricks. You'll see a nation built on broken backs and silenced voices, dressing itself in the language of freedom while practicing the politics of control. The lie is layered. It's not just spoken in words, it's baked into the systems, into the education that whitewashes history, into the courts that criminalize poverty, into the prisons that cage generations, into the neighborhoods redlined and resources denied. They teach you about democracy in textbooks, while erasing the democracy of your voice. They hand you the Constitution, but deny you the dignity it claims to guarantee. They speak of equality, yet lock opportunity behind gates built on color lines and class walls. This is not freedom. This is the illusion of freedom, carefully crafted, fiercely protected. The kind of freedom where you can speak but not be heard, where you can vote but not change anything, where you can climb but only so far as the ceiling allows. The kind of freedom that applauds your resilience while perpetuating the very systems that require it. That smiles at your struggle but refuses to dismantle the struggle itself. That says, you're equal now, while keeping one foot on your neck and the other on the gas. You are told you're free because you can buy a house, get a job, speak your mind. But what is the worth of those things if the house is in a neighborhood designed to trap you? The job is a dead end with no ladder, and the words you speak fall on deaf ears unless they make someone else comfortable. What is freedom if it's limited by your skin, your name, your zip code, your accent, or your ancestors? That is not freedom. It's permission, temporary, fragile permission dressed up as liberty. They say you have rights, but rights with conditions are not rights at all. They can surveil you, stop you, search you, suspect you, all without cause, because of how you look or where you walk. They can shoot you and then put you on trial after death. They can call you a threat just for breathing too loudly in a space that wasn't meant for you. This is the reality for millions who are told they are free, yet are treated like fugitives in their own country. And all of this is justified with the same tired slogans about law and order, about keeping the peace, about national security. But whose law? Whose order? Whose peace? A peace that comes at the cost of silence is not peace. It's submission. A law that protects the powerful and punishes the poor is not law. It's tyranny. And a nation that calls itself free while building cages and borders and surveillance states is not free. It's just well disguised. We are not fighting for new rights. We are demanding the rights we were promised. Rights that were inked into paper but never lived in practice. Because the same system that wrote, "All men are created equal," wrote laws to keep men unequal. The same hands that drafted liberty passed chains from plantation to prison. The same voices that spoke of freedom denied it to women, to immigrants, to indigenous people, to black people. That contradiction isn't accidental, it's foundational. They export this image of freedom to the world while keeping millions domestically under control. They bomb other countries in the name of liberty while criminalizing protest at home. They speak of human rights violations abroad while ignoring hunger, homelessness, and brutality in their own streets. That's not freedom. It's hypocrisy with a flag wrapped around it. It's a branding campaign, not a reality. And the saddest part is how many believe it. People are trained to celebrate the symbols while ignoring the substance. The fireworks, the parades, the pledges, all distractions. What is a national anthem if you're not allowed to stand with dignity? What is a holiday if it celebrates a history that omitted your ancestors? What is patriotism if it demands you stay silent about your pain? The narrative is powerful. It keeps people complacent. It tells them they're free, and if they're struggling, it must be their fault. It turns systemic oppression into personal failure. It sells the myth of meritocracy while ignoring the mechanisms of exclusion. If you're not making it, they say, it's because you didn't work hard enough, not because the deck was stacked. That narrative is a weapon. It is the invisible chain. It keeps people believing that their freedom is real even as they're boxed into economic ghettos, political irrelevance, and cultural erasure. So when we speak up, when we question the system, when we call out the lie, they say we're ungrateful. They say we hate the country. But to love a thing is to hold it accountable. And to hate a lie is not to hate the place. It's to hate the mask it wears. We do not hate America. We hate the deception, the hypocrisy, the exploitation that hides beneath its ideals. We are not against freedom. We are against the theft of it, the dilution of it, the redefinition of it into something hollow and meaningless. What we want is real freedom, not symbolic, not partial, not granted by permission or revoked by discomfort. Freedom that exists whether you're rich or poor, black or white, native or newcomer. Freedom that protects you when you resist, not just when you comply. Freedom that doesn't require you to shrink, to bow, to bend, to apologize for existing. Justice must be demanded, not requested. There comes a time when a people must stop asking politely for what is already theirs. You cannot whisper for justice in a system that only responds to the sound of disruption. You cannot appeal to the conscience of an institution that never had one. If justice were something that could be handed out like a favor, it would not be justice. It would be charity. And we are not beggars. We are not here with our heads bowed and our hands out, waiting for the same system that broke us to decide we're finally worthy of repair. For too long, we've been told to be patient. They told us progress takes time. They told us to wait for the courts, the Congress, the commissions. They told us to trust the process, to go through the proper channels, to work within the framework. But when the framework is built to deny you, working within it only reinforces your own oppression. Justice does not come from politely following rules made to exclude you. Justice comes when you refuse to obey the rules that were written to keep you down. If a house is built on a crooked foundation, it does not matter how many times you repaint the walls. The rot is in the structure. And if the justice system is built on a foundation of inequality, then no reform, no new slogan, no new face in the courtroom will change what it is. You cannot ask a corrupt system to correct itself. It must be challenged. It must be shaken. And when it refuses to bend, it must be broken and rebuilt with new hands and new hearts. We are told to have faith in the system. But what kind of faith is that? Faith in a police force that kills and gets medals. Faith in a court that jails the poor and frees the powerful. Faith in a prison that profits off of bodies in cages. That is not faith. That is fantasy. Faith without evidence is delusion. And the evidence shows time and time again that justice in this country is not blind. It sees color. It sees class. It sees power. And it bows before them. The history of this nation is not one of justice being freely given. It is one of people fighting, bleeding, and dying to carve out justice where none existed. Every right we now call basic had to be torn from the hands of those who held them tight. They didn't give women the right to vote. They fought for it. They didn't give workers the right to organize. They struck for it. They didn't give black people civil rights. They marched, resisted, and refused to be silent until it could no longer be denied. Nothing in this country worth having was ever given willingly, it was demanded. Demanding justice is not about asking nicely. It is not about being civil when you are being crushed. Civility is a weapon they use to silence the oppressed. They tell you not to shout, not to march, not to disrupt, because it makes them uncomfortable. But the truth is, justice is always uncomfortable for those who benefit from injustice. It is meant to be. You cannot make the powerful feel safe while you demand they stop abusing their power. You cannot make the oppressor feel at ease while you demand the end of oppression. This is not a plea, this is a declaration that we are done waiting, done hoping, done trusting in systems that have shown us nothing but contempt. We are not asking for equality anymore, we are demanding it. And the difference is everything. Asking implies that we need permission. Demanding means we are taking what is already ours. It means we no longer accept the excuses, the delays, the endless cycles of promises followed by betrayal. They love to quote laws and rules when we rise up. They tell us to go through the system, but when we do, the system locks us out. When we vote, they gerrymander. When we protest, they criminalize. When we organize, they infiltrate. When we build movements, they surveil and sabotage. So what system are we supposed to trust? What path are we supposed to take? The only path left is the one we blaze ourselves, with courage, with conviction, with the fire of generations who refuse to be silenced. Justice cannot be postponed. Delayed justice is denied justice. Every day a child grows up in poverty because of racist policies. Every day someone is incarcerated for a crime of survival. Every day a mother buries her child while the killer walks free. That is a day justice failed. And those failures are not accidents. They are built-in features of a system that was never designed to protect everyone equally. You cannot ask such a system to do what it was never meant to do. You must confront it, challenge it, replace it. We must reject the myth that justice is a favor to be granted by those in power. We must stop pretending that power concedes anything without demand. You do not win freedom through patience. You do not win dignity through compliance. You win through resistance, through refusal, through the unshakable belief that you are worthy of the justice they refuse to give you, and the willingness to fight for it until they have no choice but to yield. We must be relentless in our demand, unapologetic in our stance. There is no such thing as a convenient revolution. There is no such thing as comfortable justice. The moment you begin to fight for it, the world will push back. The system will react, and that reaction is proof that your demand is real. They would not resist if your demand had no power. They resist because they know once you stop asking and start demanding, the balance begins to shift. We must teach our children that justice is not something they wait for. It is something they build. We must teach our communities that their voices matter more than the laws written without their consent. We must teach each other that no one is coming to save us, and that we are enough to save ourselves. Justice is not a dream. It is not a hope. It is a right. And rights are never given freely. They are taken boldly. Truth is not hate. It threatens the guilty. In every era, the powerful have tried to twist the truth into something ugly, something dangerous, something to be feared. Not because the truth is violent, but because it unmasks the violence they have tried to hide. The truth does not burn buildings or break bones. It exposes the systems that do. It shines a light where they want only shadows. And so, when the oppressed speak the truth, when they name the injustice they've endured, when they lay bare the brutality behind the smile of the system, the response is not reason, it's accusation. You're spreading hate, they say. But what they really mean is, you're making me uncomfortable. They want us silent, not because our words are false, but because they are too real. They sting. They disrupt the narrative. They call out the lie that everything is fine, that the problem is solved, that the country has moved on. The ones who have the most to lose from the truth will always label it dangerous. But the danger is not in the words, it's in what the words reveal. When a child speaks of hunger in the richest country on earth, that is not hate, that is truth. When a woman names the harassment she faces at work or on the street, that is not bitterness, it is truth. When a black man points to the long line of bodies left behind by police, that is not divisiveness, it is truth. When an immigrant speaks about being treated as less than human, that is not exaggeration, it is truth. And the truth, when spoken boldly, cuts deeper than any weapon. It exposes the cracks in the foundation. It reveals the sickness beneath the surface. But truth-telling is a dangerous act in a nation built on denial. Denial is comfortable. It allows people to sleep at night. It lets them pretend that the suffering of others is isolated, deserved, or imagined. The truth shatters that illusion. It demands accountability. And accountability is what the guilty fear most. Because once people know the truth, they start to ask questions. Once they ask questions, they start to challenge. And once they challenge, the balance of power begins to shift. This is why truth-tellers are always attacked first. They're called radicals, agitators, troublemakers. Their reputations are dragged, their motives are questioned. Their voices are drowned out. Not because they lie, but because they won't. And in a system built on lies, truth is the loudest threat. It is the one thing they can't control. They can control laws. They can control the media. They can control money. But they cannot control truth. Once it has been spoken and heard, it has a life of its own. And so they twist the language. They take the truth and frame it as hate. They tell the oppressed to be quiet, to calm down, to be more respectful. They say the way you talk about injustice is more upsetting than the injustice itself. They don't want to hear about the wound because it reminds them of who inflicted it. They don't want to hear about the pain because it threatens their comfort. They don't want to hear about the problem because then they might have to become part of the solution. But the truth does not owe anyone comfort. It is not here to be gentle. It is not here to make the privileged feel good about themselves. The truth is sharp. It cuts away illusion. It is not hate to say the system is broken. It is not hate to say racism is alive and well. It is not hate to say poverty is a product of policy, not personal failure. It is not hate to say police brutality is not a series of accidents, but a pattern. It is not hate to say that the justice system has never been just for everyone. That is truth. And truth does not care about feelings. It does not pause for politeness. It does not seek permission. It exists whether we like it or not. What matters is whether we are brave enough to speak it. Because every time the truth is silenced, the lie grows stronger. Every time someone bites their tongue to avoid offense, the system wins. But when people speak up, when they name what has been hidden, when they tell their story even when their voice shakes, that is when change becomes possible. We must not confuse peace with quiet. Silence is not unity. Stillness is not progress. Just because something is not being talked about does not mean it has been solved. In fact, the silence is often the loudest evidence that the problem remains. It lingers in the background, unchallenged, uninterrupted, festering. The truth breaks that silence. It forces a reckoning. And for the guilty, for those who benefit from the silence, that reckoning feels like an attack. But it is not hate to hold people accountable. It is not hate to refuse to pretend. It is not hate to point out that the emperor has no clothes. It is not hate to say we deserve better. It is not hate to say we remember the names they want us to forget. It is not hate to demand justice where there has been none. In fact, it is love, love for truth, love for justice, love for a future where we are not bound by the lies of the past. Speaking the truth is an act of resistance, but also an act of love. It is a refusal to accept the unacceptable, a refusal to normalize cruelty, a refusal to bow to fear. The louder we speak the truth, the more desperate they become to silence us. That desperation is the proof. They know that the moment enough people hear it, believe it, and act on it, the system that protects them begins to tremble. Because a system built on lies cannot withstand the truth. It will crack, then crumble, then collapse. Not because of hate, but because the truth has finally arrived. Awakening leads to uprising and real change. There comes a moment when the fog lifts, when the lies that have wrapped themselves around our minds begin to unravel, and we start to see the world not as they tell us it is, but as it really is. That moment is awakening. It's not gentle. It doesn't feel good. It burns. It stings, because truth always does when you've been kept asleep by comfort, distraction, and fear. But that awakening is the beginning of everything. It is the spark that turns into fire. The moment when a people realize that their suffering is not natural, that their condition is not fate, that the pain they carry was placed on them deliberately and maintained by design. They don't want you awake. They prefer you sedated, entertained, confused. They will flood your senses with noise, your screens with nonsense, your schools with sanitized history. Because the minute you wake up, the minute you begin to question what you've been taught, you become a threat to their control. An awakened mind cannot be governed by deception. It cannot be manipulated with false hope or pacified with empty gestures. It begins to ask, why is the world like this? Who benefits? Who suffers? And who's responsible? That is the beginning of the uprising, not always with fists or fire, but first in the mind. The revolution does not start in the streets. It starts when someone refuses to believe the lie. It starts when someone looks at their conditions and says, this is not all there is. This is not what I was born for. And once one person says it, another begins to say it, and another. And soon, what was once unthinkable becomes undeniable. That is why they fear awakening more than anything. Because once people see the bars of the cage, they will start to test them. Once they feel the walls, they will look for a way out. They teach you to be proud of survival, but never to ask why you're forced to survive in the first place. They want you to believe that waking up means bitterness, that speaking out means hate, that resistance means chaos. But what they really fear is that your awakening will spread, that your clarity will infect others, that your courage will catch fire. Because when people begin to connect their suffering to a common cause, they realize they are not alone. They realize the system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as intended. And what is built can be unbuilt. What is enforced can be dismantled. That's when the uprising takes shape. It doesn't always announce itself with slogans or flags. Sometimes it's quiet at first. People organizing in basements, mothers refusing to accept silence, workers demanding more, students rejecting false history, families standing up to landlords, communities refusing to be ignored, and slowly the system begins to tremble because the power of the people is not in their pleas, it is in their refusal to be manipulated, to be exploited, to be erased. The awakening leads people to stop looking for saviors, to stop waiting for permission, to stop placing hope in the hands of those who profit from their pain. It teaches them that liberation is not something you request from your oppressor. It is something you claim, take, build, defend. And as more people wake up, the uprising becomes inevitable. It is not chaos. It is clarity. It is not lawlessness. It is justice unfiltered by those who have never known it. The awakened see through the tricks. They know that a new face in power does not mean a new reality on the ground. They know that policy without accountability is a mask. They know that diversity without equity is decoration. They know that speeches without structural change are performance. And they stop applauding symbolism. They begin to demand substance. They begin to understand that reform without revolution is just delay dressed as progress. Awakening is painful because it demands something from you. It demands sacrifice. It demands action. It demands that you stop being satisfied with comfort that comes at someone else's expense. And once you accept that responsibility, you can no longer look away. You can no longer play dumb. You can no longer hide behind the excuse that things are complicated. The awakened know things are simple. Some people have power, and others are kept from it. Some people live while others survive. Some are protected by the system, and others are punished by it. But it's not enough to awaken. It's not enough to be aware. There must be motion. There must be resistance. Knowledge that does not lead to action is complicity. Every truth seen but not acted upon strengthens the lie. The uprising must come not just in words, but in deeds. In the way we organize, the way we educate, the way we disrupt, the way we rebuild. It must come in refusal, to accept the lie, to obey the unjust, to play the part they've written for you. Because every time you refuse to play that part, you break the cycle, you weaken the grip of the lie, and when that uprising grows, when it spreads beyond the boundaries they set, when it crosses race, class, gender, language, nation, then the system begins to panic. It throws everything it has at the movement: distraction, division, violence, false allies, empty promises. But an awakened people cannot be fooled again. They have seen the game too clearly, and every attempt to suppress them only confirms what they already know, that they are right to rise. This is why awakening is the most radical act, because it is the seed of every revolution, the heartbeat of every struggle, the fire under every movement that has ever shaken the world. Once someone sees the truth, they cannot unsee it. Once someone claims their dignity, they cannot surrender it. Once someone decides they are worth more than what this system offers them, no force on earth can make them forget that decision.
Okay, that was one of the most powerful speeches that I have ever heard. So let me stop sharing because I want to elaborate just briefly and I'll close out the video. And as I mentioned earlier, Malcolm X was born on May 19th, 1925. A couple of days ago would have been his 100. Can you believe that? He would be 100 years of age. So we're celebrating. I had to celebrate. He's one of our greatest leaders. He, along with Marcus Garvey, some of my most famous leaders, and they are no longer with us. Another one is Dr. Claude Anderson, who is with us, and I have met him. He is an author, powerful motivational speaker as well. And I want to share something with you because Malcolm X mentioned in this speech, they locked the doors of justice. And this is not hating on anyone because personally, I don't hate anyone. However, the behavior of some on this planet is atrocious toward others. And that is what has caused so much divisiveness. And he talked about that, how they locked the doors of justice on some and opened the doors up on others. And there was a song by the OJs. You may remember that song, Backstabbers. That's what it kind of reminds me of. They smile in your face, and all the time, they're backstabbers. And that's a lot of what's going on because they're trying their best to erase our history. They don't want to hear anything about CRT, critical race theory, the school system. He talked about corruption. There's so much corruption going on. America is in a hot mess right now. It's a mess. I have been on this planet for 74 years, and I tell you, we're in the most chaotic mess that I have witnessed during my 74 years on the planet. And what we have to do is look out for ourselves and look out for one another because there's a lot of hate, too much hate. And that was very powerful. He spoke truth, and it makes some people uncomfortable. Why? Are you feeling guilty? Is that why? Because of all the white privilege and the benefits? And we go on social media, they block a lot of the truth that some people are speaking. They don't want public to hear truth. And when I say they, I'm referring to the powers that shouldn't be, many of them, because they know they're in power and they're exercising that power in a negative way. And that is what is causing all of this divisiveness. And like I said, I don't hate anybody. That's a powerful word, very powerful when you talk about someone hating somebody. So I am so grateful that we had Malcolm X for the 39 years that we had him because he was assassinated in 1965. However, what he left is a legacy for all of us. What a legacy. It's as if he's still here because we have the legacy of what he contributed to this society. And it still holds truth, as you heard in the speech. It holds truth for today. So we have to let the truth be told. And he talked about speaking up and speaking out and how the Constitution says about all men being created equal. However, we know that that there are laws created that are not equal. And I don't want to share something with you because I mentioned Malcolm X, and the speech speaks for itself, but he talked about the laws. And I want to share with you a few laws. If you get the book by Dr. Claude Anderson, he's written several books. Black Labor, White Wealth is the one I want to give you some laws that were created for Black people. And I'll give you the year. Dr. Claude Anderson has given so much to us. He's written multiple books. He wrote A Black History Reader, Powernomics, Dirty Little Secrets. I have all of his books and I've met him in person. I've heard him speak. And get those books and read them because we must be educated. That's why I started my podcast back in 2022 because I am about elevating our people to a higher level of consciousness. And that is what we need to do. Love one another. I always share that scripture with you, 2 Timothy 1:7, which states, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Let's use that power. And you notice power was stated before love. Because if you have power, you have the ability to love. And always speak up. I share with you my cup, but because I'm not on video right now, you've seen me on video sharing my cup that says speak up because I believe in speaking up. And I've had to speak up to survive in the workforce, in the housing. I used to sell real estate. I have a bachelor's degree in social work. I've even practiced law on myself because I didn't have the budget at the time to hire an attorney. So I was going to go to law school anyhow, and I just decided I'll practice law on myself against the county of Los Angeles where I was employed, and I won. And I've gone to court, small claims court as well, due to some inequalities on a home protection plan because many of them are corrupt. That's all I can say. They are corrupt. They get your money and they don't want to honor their contractual agreement. And sometimes you just have to take people to court in order to get some justice. Even though we live in an injustice system, sometimes you can get justice, but you got to do your due diligence. You got to do your homework. So let me share with you a few laws. And then I'm going to close out because the speech says it all. There was a law in 1815, and I'm reading this from Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. You should have this book in your library. It's called the Virginia Poll Law, Poll Tax rather, Virginia Poll Tax. It required free blacks to pay a $2.50 tax so whites could vote. Can you believe that? Required free blacks to pay a $2.50 tax so whites could vote. Yet, what did that Constitution say about being created equal? Let me share another one. I was born in Louisiana, so I picked this one out. 1816, Louisiana jury law provided that no black slave could testify against a white person. Do you think that could have been reversed? But it says no black slave could testify against a white person. This was a law enacted in Louisiana in 1816 called the Louisiana Jury Law. Here's another one. Mississippi preaching law forbade free blacks to preach except with permission. Can you believe that? I'm telling you, these are laws, but that Constitution says we are all created equal. And I'm going to give you a couple of more. South Carolina observing law. Now, this is one that will blow you away. It forbade blacks and windows from black, and it forbade blacks and whites from looking out the same windows. Can you believe that? You couldn't even look out the same window. And I guess you all know about the black and white water fountains. We had those, but my mother wouldn't even let us drink out them. She said, "Oh no, you're not going over there and drink out of that water fountain. You don't want any of these Jim Crow laws." But yes, they had. I grew up with that. As I've stated, I'm 74. So Malcolm X, thank you, thank you, thank you, and happy, happy, heavenly birthday because you left us so much, so much. You, along with the others. Dr. Martin Luther King left us a lot. Marcus Garvey left us a lot. So here's another one. New York runaway law prescribed execution for recaptured runaway slaves. Can you believe that? But they said all this stuff happened in the South. Remember, some people think only this stuff only happens in the South. Excuse me. 1705, the New York runaway law. Can you imagine being a slave? And if you try and get your freedom and run away, you recaptured. It's execution for you. This is hate. Now, I'm going to give you this one here, and this is the last one, because you know where our state capital is, right? District of Columbia. This law was enacted in 1836. The District of Columbia Business License Law. This is our capital, prohibited licensing blacks for profit-making activities. Now, what does that tell you? What does it tell you? Malcolm X spoke about keeping their foot on our neck. Now, if that doesn't tell you, this came out of the state capital, District of Columbia Business License Law, 1836. I'm going to repeat that one. Prohibited licensing blacks for profit-making activities. But yet, what did your Constitution say? All men are created equal, but they created laws that nullified us being equal because they thought of us as three-fifths of a person. And again, I am Louise Hicks. I am the founder of this podcast, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. Please subscribe, share this video. Hopefully, YouTube and these social media outlets, a lot of them are ridiculous because they don't want you to have knowledge of yourself and who you are. But share the video, share, 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 subscribe, 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 because we want to build our channel up to give more knowledge to others. And not just for us to have the knowledge, we need others who are righteous minded to have the knowledge, because perhaps it will change some hearts, because we do need some new hearts. And that was mentioned as well. We need some new hearts. Of course, we can't regulate a person's heart. That's for sure. We can't. And you can't take away a person's mind or knowledge. Whatever is up there, it's up to you to keep it and to utilize it and to take action to get the information, the history of who we are. Let nobody take your history away from you. Speak up, speak out. Always remember that your power lies within you. Let it loose, because your destiny is your command. So please, again, I'm Louise Hicks. Please share, 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 subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Leave your comments about the speech because it was powerful. And this is one that I had not heard. So I was so happy to run across it and thank the podcaster, man of God, for sharing this powerful speech. So share, 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 subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Man of God's channel. Give it a like, leave your comments, thumbs up. And with that said, again, we're celebrating the 100th birthday of Malcolm X, born on May 19th, 1995. 1925, I'm sorry. May 19th, 1925. And here we are, 2025, 100 years later. And that speech still rings nothing but truth. Hallelujah. Nothing but truth. Hallelujah again. So Malcolm X, thank you. We can't thank you enough, because you were a powerful leader and you have left a legacy that we will never forget. You are the legacy that you left, because you left some powerful information for us to take heed to. And for those who are listening, please listen to the entire speech and share it, because it's packed with nothing but knowledge. Just so much knowledge is packed into that speech, and it's truth, nothing but truth. And we know now America is a hot mess, and where lies seem to be becoming the norm. So we don't want lies. We want truth, and truth will prevail. God knows it will. So again, thank you all for my new subscribers. Thank you for listening. Please celebrate Malcolm X 100th birthday with our channel, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And subscribe, share, share again, comments, thumbs up, give it a like, and I will see you in the next video. And thank you so much for watching. Much love.